Welcome to episode 129 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I am your host, Matt Harmon, joined live from the Vault Studio on the beautiful campus of Grace College and Theological Seminary by my good friend, my colleague, my co-host, and the man who recently survived several days without power, John Scott Sloat.
It was tough. I imagine we have some listeners out there that were without power longer than I was, but we were almost 2 full days without power.
Yes. Well, Nate in Ohio was an extra day after yours, I think. So
yeah.
And of course, the major storms come through, knock out the power, and then we get the two hottest days on record in June.
I think record days, right?
Yeah, upper 90s temperature, disgusting humidity, that sort of thing. So did you stay in the house or did you stay somewhere else?
We went to my in-laws, Fort Wayne.
I thought that might be what you would do. So, of course, Fort Wayne also got hit, so I wasn't sure if
Their part of Fort Wayne did it. I think it was like south – it was like toward Columbia City areas of Fort Wayne that got hit pretty hard.
Okay. All right. And obviously into Ohio as well, where Nate in Ohio resides.
I drove down a road, and as I'm driving down the road, you could see like 4 telephone poles in a row had just snapped like toothpicks. Yeah. It was – I think they said the winds were comparable to like a Category 2 hurricane.
Yeah. I mean, I heard gusts around 100 miles an hour somewhere, so which glad I grabbed my deck furniture and put it inside before that happened. So.
Yeah, that's a good call. Well, did I send you the photo of what my yard looked like?
You showed it to me.
Okay, yeah. So we woke up and I hear my wife gasp. And I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "We just got something in the backyard." And she goes, "You're going to love it. It's gonna increase your childhood whimsy," or something like that. And I go to the window and I look out there and I look to the left first and I see a big bag of trash that had blown into our yard. I'm like, why do I care about this? And then I look to the other side and a trampoline had blown into our yard. And I spoke to my neighbor later that morning and she was telling me that the trampoline that was in their yard was anchored to the ground.
So it pulled up whatever was anchoring it.
Yeah, the stakes. I don't know how you anchor those things, but it blew over the fence and settled in our yard.
Okay. Have you returned the trampoline now?
They came and got it. So I got home from work that day fully intending to help them move it, and they'd come over and gotten it.
All right.
Or it had blown elsewhere. Well, those were the 2 options.
Okay. Yes, indeed. And another big event this week. You started your new job here at Grace.
I did. My first day was a day without power. So
yeah,
I drove from – and campus had power, but my house didn't. I drove from Fort Wayne to campus.
Yeah. So you're learning the new ropes of the new job there?
Ish. Yeah. Trying to just figure out who my coworkers are, and then just trying to figure out 1,000-foot view what I'm supposed to do, and probably a couple weeks before I start actually doing those things. But
yeah,
just trying to figure it out.
Okay.
Trying to figure it out if it's okay if I sneak away in the middle of the day to do a podcast.
I'm sure it is. I mean, you take it up with your boss's boss. I feel like I'm on pretty good terms with your. You don't really have a. I guess you don't really have a boss right now, do you? Technically,
Technically I do. Technically, it's who will be my boss's boss.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Because basically, the guy who used to be the head of advancement,
is now the president.
As of July 1st, will be the new president
That's
of
right.
the institution. So, I feel like we're both on pretty good terms with him. So I think we can make that happen in terms of securing time for the podcast.
Yes.
And if we have issues, we will start this massive social media campaign where we will have listeners, flood the Grace College social media channels with demands.
That's right.
To free John Sloat.
Or offers of gifts to help John Sloat in his new job. That'd be helpful as well.
Indeed. Well, if you would like to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter at VNSPod. You can email the show, variousandsundrypodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and on YouTube, and we would love for you to leave a 5-star rating and a review on whatever platform you manage to access the show. All right, let's talk some sports, John. So doing something a little bit different today. We're recording actually on a Friday.
That's right.
For an episode that won't release until the following Tuesday because you'll be out of town.
Yes. I'll be in Duluth, Minnesota, or north of Duluth, I believe.
Okay. What on earth is in Duluth?
Yeah. So
besides the Duluth Trading Company, I imagine.
I think it's there. So it's on the north shore of Lake Superior.
Okay.
In Minnesota.
Minnesota.
And Andrea's sister was supposed to run a marathon up there to qualify for like the Boston Marathon or something like that. However, she got injured, and so she's not going to be able to run in that marathon. But we all had plane tickets and rental cars and places to stay, so we're still going to go up and have a good 3 to 4 days up there.
Okay. I would imagine it's relatively temperate there given this time of year. Like if you're – from what I understand, I've known a couple people who've lived in Minnesota, and they like to say you get like 3 weeks of summer.
Yeah. I think we're going in the 3 week of summer spot.
Okay. Is it a remote area? Like are you out in the country, on the lake?
We're on the shore.
Okay.
I don't know ultimately what that means, but I don't think it's like let's go swimming. Like I don't think you do that in Superior.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think like 60-70% of the year it's frozen.
I wouldn't be surprised. All right, well, let's talk some sports here, John.
Okay.
So the reason I brought up the unusual day we're recording is that we're recording on a Friday morning, but the NBA Finals are now over.
Yep.
Last night, Golden State beat Boston in Boston to win the series 4-2.
Steph Curry, MVP.
Yes, Stephanie did win the MVP, and deservedly so. Boston was a strange team to me. They would have stretches where they just looked like they were by far the better team, and then they would just sort of lose their minds. And in games 5 and 6 in particular, what cost them was turnovers, where they would at least in game 5, I think they shot more free throws, they made more threes, but they turned the ball over 18 times, and Golden State turned it over 7. And they had like 22 or 23 turnovers in Game 6. Like
I saw one statistic that said the Golden State Warriors and Al Horford were shooting like 55% from 3 or something like that. The Celtics minus Al Horford were shooting like 19.
Yeah, they certainly struggled to make shots, but even that can be overcome to some degree if you don't turn it over. Like when you combine poor shooting with turning the ball over. That's a very difficult recipe for success. So, Golden State wins their 4th title in 8 years. What's going on with the Mets?
We just won another series against the Milwaukee Brewers. We're a little banged up. Bullpen's not looking great. The thing that's interesting is, so we've won the last 2 series against the Angels and against the Brewers. We lost against the Padres. There were some injuries there, and we split with the Dodgers while we were out there. However, so that's a pretty good stretch. You should be able to maintain your first place.
Yeah.
We've lost like 7 or 8 games of ground because the Braves have won 14 or 15 games in a row.
Wow.
So we're down to like a 4 or 5 game lead now. So that seems to be the big news. The big freak out in Mets Twitter is about the Braves winning 14 or 15 in a row.
Yeah. Though, I mean, eventually they're going to come back to earth, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, you have those sort of 14-game winning streaks, and eventually, especially in a season that's 162 games,
absolutely,
you're going to have a 7-game losing streak, an 8-game. Yeah. So, if the Mets can just consistently win series or split series, we're
going to be fine.
Yeah. Also, Stanley Cup finals are underway. I actually caught Game 1.
Oh, really?
I did. I was so desperate for sports that I was interested in that I watched Game 1.
Playoff hockey is a lot of fun.
It is, and it was an interesting game. Colorado won in overtime. So,
by the way, Colorado hockey, great team name.
The Avalanche?
The Avalanche?
Yeah.
That's a great team name.
Yeah. I know almost nothing about the NHL, but I didn't realize this is the third straight year that Tampa Bay is in the finals.
Yeah, Tampa Bay's really good.
So if this was like a major
Really good.
the NHL is a major sport,
Quote unquote, yeah.
but it's significantly less popular than obviously the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball.
I think it tends to be more regional. Like if your region has a team, it's really popular in that region. So if you're in Denver right now, I'm sure the town is all about the Avalanche and are talking about it all the time. You get 2 hours outside of Denver, they're probably not talking about it. Whereas the NBA finals, I feel like, is a bit more national.
Yeah.
And I think this happens with baseball too, that it tends to be more regional.
That's probably true.
So I know when I was living in Pittsburgh, everybody was about the Penguins. And I was watching the Penguins, although I'm not a massive fan. But I imagine in Denver, I imagine in Tampa, everybody is freaking out about their team.
Yeah. So I'm at least intrigued to keep tabs on that. And as we're recording, the U.S. Open golf tournament is going on.
It must be Father's Day weekend.
It is, yeah. Which here's what one of the reasons I enjoy. I actually watched a decent chunk yesterday of the first round, and part of what's great about the U.S. Open is because the courses are so tough. It makes these elite level golfers look like Saturday afternoon hacks.
Where
points.
Where is it this year?
It's outside of Boston, actually.
Okay.
I forget what the name of the course is.
Okay.
But they grow the rough really thick, and so there was one shot, I forget the player, but he's in the rough. You can't even see the ball, obviously, on TV, and he swings. It looks like almost as hard as he can, and the ball, you see the ball barely pop up above the grass, advance 12 inches, and then go back down.
Oh gosh!
Who among us has not been there, right? And then another guy I saw, he was probably, 3 feet off the green.
Okay.
And he tried to do one of these really high flop shots, where you hit it almost straight up in the air and it lands. And he swung and he went completely under the ball and it didn't move. He so undercut it that again, it's just fun. It's fun for me, the guy who plays golf 2-3 times a year at most.
Yeah.
And hacks around and enjoys it, but to see these elite level golfers look like the Saturday afternoon hacker. So I enjoy that.
Yeah.
All right. You ready to talk some of our summer read here?
Sure.
So today we are continuing our discussion of Mere Evangelism by Randy Newman. And we are talking about chapters 7 and 8.
Oh.
Nope, sorry. 8 and 9.
There you go.
8 and 9. The power of prayer and the timeliness of pushback. So, John, what's something that stood out to you from either of those chapters?
So in the prayer chapter, I appreciated just how much he talked about how challenging prayer is for people. I do sometimes feel like we don't talk about that enough, maybe, that this is a challenge. But then didn't just stay in that, but also provided a solution, talking about the need to have a system of prayer and to have the names of non-believers be a part of that system of prayer.
Yeah.
And then talking about fixing our attention on the one who we are praying to. So I thought those 2 points were what I pulled out of that chapter that were most helpful. How about you?
Yeah, I think, and again, this is a steady thread that runs throughout the whole book, how practical Randy is in terms of making suggestions. And I found that suggestion really helpful in terms of intentionally having a list of unbelievers that you pray for regularly.
Yeah.
And that's just something that honestly I don't do enough consistently. And so I think that's just a real practical way to engage in the work of evangelism on a regular basis. And I think for me, it's almost easier to default into praying for missionaries or church planters or things like that, and even praying. Our church is working towards a church plant in a somewhat nearby town, and even had a prayer meeting for them recently, and praying for God to prepare the hearts even now of people that they'll be reaching out to, and even just reading this chapter just made me think, well, why am I not doing that more consistently with people in my own life, not just for these for missionaries or church planters, but specific people in my own life. So, and then chapter 9, right? Yes.
Yeah. The pushback.
Pushback. What grabbed your attention from that?
I appreciated him highlighting Lewis's ability to anticipate pushback and how that – and I think a theme through the book, and we talked to Randy about this, was his intentional reflection, like thinking through some of those pushbacks. And he even highlighted doing it in such a way that's not like a gotcha winning points sort of a thing, but more of a doing it in a desire to win the heart, win the soul of the person. Yeah. So that's something I very much appreciate about that chapter. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think Lewis is a great model, and this is something that I think can be applied even in our preaching and our teaching, not just strictly in the realm of direct evangelism, of anticipating objections, anticipating pushback, and then addressing it before the person even has a chance to kind of offer the pushback, or at least laying the foundations so that you're ready to address it. And some of that, again, just comes with intentionality of thinking about, well, what are issues in our culture that we're going to get pushback on? And is that the chapter? I think is that the chapter where he specifically deals with sexuality?
I believe so. Yeah.
Where he basically kind of acknowledges, look, this is like one of the most pressing issues where Christians today are going to get pushback. So just be ready for it, and to do it in a way that is, firm but gracious, I think is helpful. I think Randy models this really well in here in terms of thinking through the kinds of objections, and some of it too is just reading the situation, right, and the person.
Oh yeah.
Some people, if you give, at one point he says Lewis was comfortable at points to saying, "That's wrong. That's wrong." Now that may not be the best approach in all circumstances.
Sure.
But to be able to offer pushback in a way that doesn't that depending on the person, but some people, if you're too subtle, they'll just kind of brush it off. So some people need that more direct, like, that's not right, to kind of wake them up to, oh, you disagree. Well, why is that? I think the skill of doing that in our culture gets harder and harder. I think it's way easier in personal conversations as opposed to, has pushback ever worked on social media? like I'm not saying you don't give pushback, but that's there's just the world of social media, and then there's the world of personal conversations where you can, I think, have a lot more reasonable conversations. So, anything else on those chapters?
No. I just want to reiterate how much I've enjoyed the book thus far, and excited to do chapter 10 and the conclusion next week, right? Yes. So chapters 10 and conclusion, and then the week after that,
interview. We will post the interview we did with Randy,
which was wonderful.
Yeah. So in light of when we do the summer read, we like to pick some topics that are a little bit shorter for our main topic because we have a little bit less time to discuss those. And so in our never-ending quest for content, and as we were coming up on needing content, I came across an article by Tim Challies that we're going to just pull from here. It was called 40 More Random Pieces of Advice for the Christian Life, which obviously he had done a previous article, 40 Pieces of Random Advice for the Christian Life. But we're just going to do the more one, and we're going to pull through this a little bit. Do you remember when Challies came to campus here at Grace?
That was my year abroad.
Your year of exile. Yes.
I was in Louisville.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For part of that, he stayed in our home.
Yeah, I knew that.
That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
You said he was a good guy to hang out with, basically. He was a good conversationalist.
Yes. Yeah. He had some interesting kind of behind-the-curtain insights on folks that we appreciate from our tribe.
Yeah, yeah.
Just what they were like off the stage, basically.
And I mean, this I don't know if we've talked about his website much on our podcast, but it would be a good resource for anybody looking to look into somebody that's a really thoughtful Christian.
Yeah.
Former pastor? Is that?
He was a pastor for a while and then
Yes.
stepped away, I think, from pastoral ministry.
To focus on, I think, the website.
Yeah.
Has a pretty wide readership, is pretty gracious but firm.
Yeah.
Is it Challies.com?
It is, Challies.com.
So I know lots of people who read it. It's well worth your time if you've never heard of it. He does great book reviews. I remember when I was in seminary, he was going, I have a small office. Here are the best commentaries that I keep in my office on these books.
Yeah.
Because I have a small office and I have limited shelves, I can't buy everything. So
Right.
here's what I have. And that was a really wonderful series, walking through book by book and why he has the commentaries he does.
Yeah. And I think every weekday at least, he releases what he calls an a la carte, which is 5 or 6 links from across the web that he found interesting. Mm-hmm. And it's a really good selection.
And he used to, I don't know if he does it anymore. It's been a while since I followed him very closely, but he used to have a Free Stuffs Friday.
Yeah, I don't know if he does that or not.
Did you know I won Free Stuffs Friday one time? Yes. I was a seminary student, and I would just go on every Friday morning and sign up for his Free Stuff Fridays. And I remember I got an email from him. It was like, hey, you won. Give me your address, and I'll have the publisher send this to you. And it was I won – it's a little bit of a white elephant now, but it was a 3-ring binder of the ESV Bible.
So what was was that designed for –
Well, here's the weird thing. It wasn't done by Crossway. It was done by Broadman Holman, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, you'll have to – I
Must
believe
have been
so.
before the CSB then. Yeah, it would have been before the HCSB and the CSB translations that they do now.
I'll have to show it to you sometime because it's just a
Massive.
really, really large 3-ring binder of the ESV scriptures.
And so was it designed for you to take notes or
It does have wide margins.
Okay.
That is something that it has.
That's interesting.
I imagine it's also for the heretic out there that is looking to remove books or pages or passages or anything like that.
Okay.
It was done on regular printer paper as well, so so you can use an actual highlighter on it.
Yeah.
But yes, I won this through Challies, and
That's funny.
I got it, and I remember going, "Oh, this is great!" And then I remember going,
What do I do with this?
"What do I do with this?" Yeah. So
Anyway, so we'll just kind of pick through some of the again, it's entitled 40 Random Pieces. So it'll be all over the map. We'll pick some, riff on it a bit, and then move on. So why don't you get us started, John, with one of the 40.
oh my goodness,
And we won't go in any particular order. We're just kind of randomly picking ourselves.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one. You can count on it as a general rule that what you gain from a church service will relate directly to your level of expectation and preparation. Mm-hmm. I appreciated that one. Yeah. I think that's totally true. I don't think enough people do, and I lump myself in, pre-work for the service, like preparing my heart, maybe reading the passage ahead of time.
Yeah.
I think that's a good exercise and practice to get into.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
How about you? What's your any thoughts on that? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I think our church does a solid job of trying to get out in front of that by having here's next week's passage.
Yep.
Read it. But yeah, I think when it comes to how we benefit from a worship service, there's a significant degree to which how much you prepare for that influences that. I'll go with this one here. One of the best ways to show love to your friends is to show love to your friends' children. Take an interest in them, love them, and be a friend to them. To be honest, that's been one of the best benefits of being a seminary professor, is having seminary students that we get to know and they take an interest in our kids' lives and have become mentors for them in some cases. I remember multiple instances of you and others coming to our kids' elementary basketball games or things like that, or just being over at the house, hanging out with them, showing an interest in them, playing with them, talking with them.
Paring down their Christmas list.
Yes, you have for a several year window, you provided a major service to our family by helping our oldest son pare down a Christmas list into something that is reasonable.
And tangible.
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't need to get into it. I'll say, so one of the reflections, so when John Stott passed away, when was that? Was that like 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in that ballpark?
Sure.
I remember one of the, I don't know what you call them, articles about his life. One of the reflections was that anytime he walked into a room, he went directly for the children. If he walked into somebody's house and was there for dinner, he would walk in and spend a good 15 to 20 minutes with the children every single time. And I think that's a good discipline to be in.
Absolutely. What do you got next?
This one resonated with me. Understand that if you will only follow those in position of authority over you when they do things you want them to do anyway, you're not actually submitting to their leadership. Sometimes submission to our leaders means joyfully following their leadership even when you disagree with it. I think that's a hard one. I think that's a hard one for all of us to do.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Particularly in this age of feeling like everybody has to voice their opposition. And I think that this is particularly hard when it feels so easy to step away from a church and move on to another church.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Here's another one. Distinguish between reading the Bible for depth and reading it for breadth. In other words, invest some effort in going deep into particular books, chapters, and verses, and also some effort into gaining an overview of the entire book. Read fast sometimes and slow other times. Read huge passages on some occasions and small ones on others. And then I'll tie this with another one. In your personal devotions, try listening to the Bible if you typically read it, or try reading the Bible if you typically listen to it. Both are good and both are modeled in Scripture. Each engages the mind in different ways. So, I think it can be easy for believers to fall into a rut with Bible reading, and I think those are two helpful tips to help keep it dynamic, especially the breadth and depth thing. I think people tend to gravitate towards one or the other. So they're like, I'm going to read through the whole Bible in a year. Great project. I've done it myself several times. It's valuable. You see big picture stuff. You're moving through. You're getting exposure to the whole breadth of Scripture. But there's also a great value to saying, for the next month, I'm just going to soak myself in Ephesians, or our church is preaching through Deuteronomy. For the next several months during that, I'm just going to read through Deuteronomy over and over again. I'm going to pick specific passages and do a little deeper dive. Just variety, I think, is a good thing there. Yeah,
I think changing things up often gives you another perspective. Certainly in Bible reading, but certainly in other areas of life as well.
And related to that can be read a different translation.
Absolutely,
it's great to have a go-to standard translation that you read from. But sometimes reading a different translation, even just, we're both ESV for the most part, though you read a lot of CSB, I think, too.
My daily reading's in CSB. Yeah.
But those are relatively close translations, but even still, between
Yeah.
those, you'll see some different nuances in the translations.
Yeah.
What do you got?
It's always my nod to the Southern Baptists, really. Relational problem solving. This is a theme on the podcast. Relational problem solving is always best done face to face. When that's not possible, FaceTime or a phone call is second best. Email and social media are usually about as bad as it gets. Fight the tendency to attempt to solve problems at a distance instead of close. There is, that's just a true statement that I wish everybody would follow and learn.
Yeah.
In this age, and I think it's even come up on the podcast already today.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think this next one I'm sure hits very close to home for Tim. When someone suffers a sore loss, grieve with them and offer them your condolences in a way that is appropriate to your relationship, but then also put the anniversary of that loss on your calendar and get in touch with them a month and a year later to say that you remember them and are praying for them.
Yeah.
For our listeners who don't know, Tim Challies' son, who was 2022?
Somewhere between 21 and 23.
Was he still a student at Boyce College at the time?
Yes, I think he was getting ready to graduate.
Okay. Completely unexpectedly died from an unknown, undiagnosed heart condition, from what I understand, right? Where it's just he was, I think, playing spike ball or frisbee or something and literally just collapsed. And so just a heartbreaking loss for him and his family. His son was engaged to be married. Just a tragic situation. So that's spoken by a person who has walked through something that is about as hard to envision as anything you can imagine. So wise advice there. What else you got?
So I had read the other article as well, the 40, and I was looking for one that was on that list, but I won't go there. Okay.
Well, it's our show, John. We can do what we want. We can link to the other article if.
So in that article, he says, "Sing loudly in church," and I appreciate that. He said, especially men, just really belt it out. Don't mumble. I think that's something that can be neglected or eye rolled at sometimes. I remember being in seminary, guys going, "Man, I just want 2 sermons, not some singing." Yeah. And I think I would have. I don't think I ever would have said that in seminary, but I think I would have thought that. And now I appreciate some good congregational singing.
Yeah,
I appreciate some and I appreciate some volume, and that's something my wife has noticed about me is I get loud. It's not particularly good either.
Yes. You know who is a loud singer at our church? Our lead pastor.
Really?
He is. Have you not heard
that.
him?
Well, I've never sat near him.
I don't sit near him, and I hear him.
Really?
Yeah. Now, typically it might be because he's holding a note longer than the rest of the larger congregation, but he's a loud singer, and not in an obnoxious way or anything, but like
not in a Seinfeld episode sort of way.
No. Let's see here. Before you visit a country or culture that is not your own, ask someone what customs you should practice and what customs you should avoid in order to prevent offense. What is polite in your culture may be downright insulting in another, and what is insulting in your culture may be courteous in another. That's just sage advice for traveling there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't go in with the big camera and the loudness and something Americans get dinged for all the time.
Well, and even one custom that as Americans we're very, very used to is tipping at a restaurant. There are plenty of countries and cultures where tipping is not done. Like
most other cultures.
Where they pay the wait staff an actual wage.
Right. Do you know wait staff? I was recently talking to a server, and And the pay for wait staff has not changed since I was a server when I was in seminary. Gosh, what was that, 10, 11 years ago? It is still, at least in the state of Indiana, $2.16 an hour
gosh.
make. $2.16 an hour.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, let's each go one more here.
Okay. One of the rare virtues in the workday world is the ability to take things to completion. It takes little skill to begin something, but often takes great skill and perseverance to complete it well. I appreciate that.
Very true.
And I think that's true.
Very true. Let's see. I'll go with this one. Terms like introvert and extrovert may be helpful descriptors of personality types, but they should never be used as an excuse to neglect opportunities to love and serve others. Whether introverted or extroverted, be dutiful in all God calls you to, even when it cuts against the grain.
I remember reading an article by Tim Challies about that, where he read there's a book called Quiet that was big. Oh my goodness, I was probably in seminary, but it was The Power of Extroverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. Mm-hmm. And he said that his wife actually called him out on it because he was using that book as an excuse to not engage with people. So I could see this being a
yeah. I know him a little bit, and he's definitely more bent towards the introvert side of things. But I think this is one of the dangers to me of all of the personality testing and things, and gift testing and strengths testing and all these. There can be a place for that. I'm not throw them all out. But sometimes they can be misused.
Oh, absolutely.
As well, my gifts are this. Mm-hmm. So I should never even worry about having to do this other group of things that God commands me to do because it doesn't fit my personality bent or my strengths or whatever.
Yeah, I remember having a student who took one of these tests and goes, "Oh, I'm this way, this way, this way. That's why you all annoy me and I don't want to hang out with you anymore." And I went, the purpose of these tests is to understand yourself better and understand your weaknesses at times also.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And to use those gifts to love others.
Yeah. Yeah, and even tying back to our conversation about evangelism. Some people are like, "Oh, I'm just not extroverted, so I could never, be the person to strike up a conversation with somebody or things like that." That is something that we as believers are called to do. Or on the flip side of it, you get these raging extroverts who are like, "I can't sit still long enough to read my Bible or to pray or to be alone."
That's not the way I'm wired.
Yeah.
Don't have to do. Yeah.
Well, so yeah, there's a lot of interesting, fun stuff in this article. So, but I think we probably need to move on, don't you think? Here,
yeah. This day in sports history, June 21st, 2022, 1939. Good year. I don't know why I said that. The New York Yankees announced Lou Gehrig's retirement after doctors reveal he had, oh my goodness, you put the disease in here, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Did I get that right?
I think so.
Okay.
And so basically, because no one can pronounce it, we just started calling it Lou Gehrig's disease.
Lou Gehrig's disease, yeah. Wow. In the middle of the season, announced his retirement.
Yep.
1986, another good year. Heisman Trophy winner Bo Jackson signs a 3-year contract to play baseball with the Kansas City Royals. Yeah,
that was there's a lot of, when he came out of college, would he play baseball? Would he play football? That's one of the better 30 for 30s on Bo Jackson.
Yeah,
that's a really good one. He was arguably the freakiest freak athlete that I can remember in my lifetime.
Yeah. Him and who else has done the two sports thing?
Dion
did it. Is there anybody else on that list?
Not that I remember.
Okay. 1998, U.S. Open men's golf at the Olympic Club. Oh my goodness. In San Francisco. Is that what? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure I get get this right. Lee Janzen recovers from 7 strokes down to win his second U.S. Open title, 1 stroke ahead of runner-up Payne Stewart.
Yes. That's quite a rally.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure I was watching golf at that time because I was alive. 2012.
That should be NBA finals.
NBA finals. I was like, what are the BA finals? I was like, the Badminton Association finals. Miami Heat win their second NBA title, beating Oklahoma City Thunder 121-106 in Game 5.
Yeah.
I at first looked at that and went like Oklahoma City wasn't a team then, but it definitely was. They had Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
They had Russell Westbrook, and they had James Harden.
Yes. Now that was before Harden blew up.
Yes.
In terms of like being what he was in his prime.
But he was a great sixth man off the bench.
He was a great sixth man, yes. And they had didn't they have a young Serge Ibaka?
They had a young Serge Ibaka on that team. That was a fun team to watch.
Yeah, that was a team that if they had stayed together would have dominated this decade.
Yeah.
So,
don't you think Russell Westbrook blew that whole thing up a little bit?
Well, wasn't who? I mean, did they trade Harden to get value for him because they didn't want to sign him? I'm trying to remember what the sequence was. I think they got rid of him, and then it was Westbrook and Durant, and they couldn't get past the Warriors, and and so
and that was the KD burner account off season, right? Where he had a burner Twitter.
Yeah, he needs to stay off social media. Does him no favors. What do you like out of this list?
Oh my goodness, I forgot we had to pick one. I mean, I certainly don't like Lou Gehrig's disease. Let's go with Bo Jackson.
I like a good Bo Jackson story. Yeah, for sure. One thing you liked.
So this past weekend, my life group had a cookout, and we were at somebody who has some properties, and he pulled out a 1970s John Deere tractor.
Okay.
And he goes, "John, you ever drive a tractor?" I said, "Nope." He goes, "You are today." And so I hopped in the driver's seat of this, like I don't think it was it wasn't like a huge tractor, but it was I had to climb up into it.
Yeah.
You know, it was a big tractor, and I've just never driven a tractor before. So I got to drive a John Deere tractor.
Did it have like a cabin, for lack of a better term, like an enclosed, or was yours open air?
It was open air.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it was a diesel engine, you know.
Yeah.
It was I mean, I can see why people enjoy doing it. I can see why children in the Midwest play with tractors.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I remember. Well, it was last summer. Our combined life groups were at this person's the same person's property.
They have beautiful property.
It's a great piece of land. And was that the first time you rode a four-wheeler or drove a four-wheeler?
No, I'd done four-wheelers before. Might have been the first time my wife was on a four-wheeler.
That might have been, yeah.
After that evening, we were sitting around the fire, and it was getting dark, and then all the coyotes started howling like all over the place, and I'm just like, "Where the heck am I?"
Yeah.
You know, I'm uncomfortable with this, and but you know, Lee didn't respond to it at all, and just went, "Yeah, that's normal." And,
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Lee's a good dude. He's got a great family there.
Yeah. All right. How about you?
So this is more directly something that my wife enjoyed this week. She was at the Gospel Coalition Women's Conference down in Indianapolis.
Oh.
And she enjoyed taking in some of the messages. She also helped out at the Grace booth where we're promoting the seminary, and got to meet different people through that. And she saw friends from around the region that she didn't know were coming to the conference, like Zach in Ohio's wife is there.
Yeah. I saw that on Twitter that she was there.
Yeah. And then also saw one of her college roommates that she hasn't seen in probably, oh goodness. Has it been 10 years maybe at least? Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's great.
Yeah, just fun for her to experience that, and also get to get some good time with with one of her best friends, Beth, who's helping out with the seminary booth as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So more of a one thing she liked. I don't enjoy being away from her, but I'm glad she got to go and experience that. Though she did tell me I'm not a conference person. Too many people, too many long lines.
Yeah.
So it does take a bit to adjust to that. And figuring out, okay, so the seminar I want to go to is in what room? How do I get there? Where is that in the convention center here? So
convention centers can be a little disorienting as well.
Yes.
They're so big, and quite frankly, the organization of them doesn't make a lot of sense oftentimes. I'm sure it makes sense for we're gonna roll a bunch of RVs in here and do that, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a lot of formal teaching like that.
For sure. Well, we have talked some sports. We've talked our summer read. We've talked about John's new job.
A little bit.
We talked about a Tim Challies article, Random Pieces of Advice. We've talked about Bo Jackson. We've talked about John driving a tractor and now his desire to buy land in the country and become a farmer. And we've talked –
that feels like a lot of added material. That's a lot of subtext there that I'm uncomfortable with.
I'm just reading into it a little bit there. Right. You're going the Wendell Berry route. And we talked about my wife attending Gospel Coalition Women's. And so I think by definition, we have covered our various and sundry topics. So all that's left to say is until next time, the Lord bless y'all real good.
Later.